Hi, everyone. This is Denise and Brandy with Eternally Fit.
We have our guest on today.
Hi.
Sometimes doing the intro, but this is my sister-in-law, Stacey. She's been a great blessing in my life. She's one I turn to in any guidance with the Bible and situations in my life that I want help understanding what I should do. So I'm going to let Stacey go ahead and tell us where she's from and a little bit about herself.
Well, thanks. That's a very sweet introduction. So yes, I am from here, Marietta area. Grew up here. So I met Brandy. Obviously, our husbands are brothers, and we met. Gosh, I've been married for what, 18 years?
18, because I'm 17.
Okay, so we met 18 years ago. This fun, loving girl from Wyoming. I just loved her personality.
Oh gosh, I'm gonna cry already.
The get-go. She was kind of like a missing piece, just a fun person, and I've always enjoyed being around her. She brings the lightheartedness out of people, I think.
I can give
always
it
up
too.
for
I
a
can
laugh.
make it your lighthearted too, not on purpose.
Always up for a laugh, good, deep conversation, and a workout.
Yay.
Anyways, but, and so, yeah, I have 4 kids, and now we live, like a mile and a half apart, and that's a blessing. We get to walk together a lot of times, and like she said, we go to church together, and we are it's wonderful having a sister that is you can talk to about anything. So
yeah. I'm gonna just say, so if we want to start off with your story. So a year ago, I remember getting this frantic phone call from our mother-in-law, and I can't tell you the feeling. You just have that drop of the uncertainty of the story that Stacey's about to tell. So I'm grateful. Obviously, she's here. She's doing well. But the journey along the way, the impact it had in my life, trying, devoting my life to Christ more, praying to him more, and knowing everything's in God's hands it did help me in that aspect. And just knowing you have such an amazing person you don't want to miss out on. So
yeah. So it's interesting hearing that side of it, because I only have my experience. When I started hearing other people's side of it, it's like, wow, I had no idea until I got home what an impact it had or how it made other people feel. So I'll just start telling. About a year ago, it was November 30th of last year. I was 40. I have 4 kids, and it was a normal Wednesday. I was at home working. My daughter was home. My husband happened to be off work that week because it was deer season. So he was hunting. And then that evening, both my boys had basketball games at different locations. So we were, planning logistics of who's going where, all that stuff. And so we went to the basketball games. I drove there several different locations, and then got home. It was about 9:00 at night. And I put my daughter to bed, and Derek put Keegan to bed, and my other 2 boys were sitting at the kitchen counter. And it was the start of Christmas season. So my little 7-year-old at the time was excited to get all the Christmas traditions started. So he, the elf on the shelf was coming back the next day. So I was writing something out for that. And all of a sudden I just felt like this dizziness, and it's like the room was spinning, and my vision just was off, and I felt very weak. My head was hurting, the side of my face was hurting. And I just got down off my chair because I felt like I couldn't sit up any longer, and I started crawling through the kitchen until I couldn't go any further. And I asked one of my boys to go get a wet rag because I felt like a fever was coming over me. And so, that should have been my first,
but we had been sick with a stomach bug the night before.
Right.
So the kids,
I thought, oh wow, this is, I'm getting a really bad stomach bug. It's happening quickly. And so, Derek came downstairs, and I started to get sick to my stomach. So I started throwing up, and, but it was just an intense pain in my head. And I even said the words, I think I'm having a brain aneurysm. And I was kind of partially being truthful, but I was also like, yeah, that's probably not likely, but it was like an
She
intense
texted
headache.
us sisters that next morning
Yeah.
and said, you guys, I think it felt like I had a brain aneurysm last night. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And Derek even said the word stroke because he goes over a lot of that stuff at work, and he knew the FAST acronym, which is face, arm, speech, and time, but I didn't have any of those symptoms. Like my face was not drooping. My arm was.
You had equal grasp and equal strength.
Yeah. So we're like, that can't be possible. So anyways, he helped me to bed, and then I just all night long I was up sick and I couldn't get out of bed. He was like holding a bucket for me to throw up in, and so anyways, fast forward all day the next day until about the afternoon, I was sick to my stomach. And by this point I was very dehydrated, and I had asked him several times for ibuprofen. I took it, I'd immediately throw it back up, couldn't keep any water down. And so I just felt like I was very dehydrated and sick, but the nausea stopped by afternoon time. We called my doctor, and they said, of course, you need to go to the ER. Well, I was very reluctant to go to the ER because I thought I had the flu. And I was like, I just need to, this is going to wear off any minute. The throwing up stopped. So I was like, I'm going to start to get better. Well, by the second night, that pain was unbearable. I mean, it was an awful night. I wasn't throwing up, but I had one of those muscle gun, massager things.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like trying to just like cause myself pain in other areas of my body to divert the pain that I was feeling in my head.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
it was intense. And by about 4 a.m. or so, I was actually like moaning in my room. I was in such pain. So that's
4 a.m.
Yeah.
Friday morning.
So that's when Derek finally came in. I mean, he checked on me, but I was the one that was like, I don't want to go to the ER. I just didn't want to go. I just felt like it was the flu. But at that point, we're like, okay, I need to get an IV. I need to get fluids, because this was just getting out of control. And so we went to the ER, got right in, and they started asking me questions about like meningitis and COVID and things like that.
Did they ask you about mono?
They might have. I don't know. I wasn't probably thinking real clearly, but I do remember a lot of that morning. And so anyways, they said, well, we better do a CT scan to check your brain. And so I was like, oh, this is going to be all for nothing. It's probably just the flu. And I was more like worried about, let's just manage these symptoms. Like I just want my headache to go away, and so I will never forget though, the doctor's face when he came back in the room. He came back in the room and he didn't say anything right away. He just stood at the end of my bed and he's asked me some questions like stick out your tongue, touch your finger to your nose, these, and I could do all that. I was like, this is weird. Something's not right. And so that's when he said, well, we need to confirm with an MRI, but your scan is showing that you've suffered from a severe stroke.
And severe.
Yeah, severe stroke. And I'm like, this can't be right. This has to be a mistake or something. And he said, we need to get you in an ICU bed right away. And I'm like, ICU? Like I've had family members in the ICU. That's for severely sick, chronic,
That's not me. I just had a stomach bug.
Right. I'm like, this has got to be a mistake. So then he comes back in, and I know there were, at that point, I think Derek had contacted my parents and stuff. And, I wasn't really thinking clearly. I don't think at that point. The doctor came back in. He said, well, we don't have any beds here at Marietta, so we're going to life flight you to Columbus. I was like, wow, life flight. Like, this is crazy. And so everything started happening really quickly. My parents came down. And I think that's when it hit me. When I saw them, I saw Derek, just kind of the way they were acting and their faces. They were trying to be calm, but I also could see how serious it was.
How were they? Like what?
It was just like, the thing, just, I love you. You're going to be okay. Like I just was like, for the first time in my life, I actually felt like I was facing possible death. I've always been healthy. I've never had any health issues. And I mean, we all know when we step out the door every day or any day, your health can change. You know, we all know that life is fragile.
And God only knows your
right. But at that moment, I had never really thought it was possible that I could die right now. And when you're faced with that, you are forced to ask yourself some really tough questions and think about some things that maybe you've never thought about before. And so I said goodbye to my parents. I said goodbye to Derek. And in my head, I was thinking about my kids. I was like, what happens if I don't make it? Who's going to take care of my kids? I mean, obviously I know my family and Derek would take care of them, but nobody knows your kids like you do as a mom. So that was my concern. I was just telling Derek, said, take care of my kids. Tell them I love them. I love you. And, I think I was apologizing to him. I was saying how sorry I was for, all the pettiness stuff that we worry about on a daily basis, or so it was just kind of emotional.
So in the middle of you contemplating your death,
yeah,
you're apologizing.
Yeah. Well, I was like, I don't, if something happens, I just want you to know, at the end of all of this, I love you. I love you. I love my kids. I love my parents. I love my family. I just don't want something to happen and there be any hard feelings, but
that says a lot about who you are.
Well,
oh my gosh.
It's just it was just a ball of emotions.
And I don't think we would know how to even understand it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then
I'm holding back tears here, so I'm just waiting. I'm clenching my jaw. I'm just preparing.
So
she keeps making eye contact with me too, and it's really
try not to. So then everything started happening. I said goodbye to all of them, and then I'm with the med flight team. We go, and they're just amazing.
And you're by yourself, though.
I'm by myself. I'm strapped to a table or stretcher.
Right.
And they're amazing. I remember going in an elevator, and they just, they try to make everything calm. But I'm like, what is happening? And so we get to the roof of the hospital, and that was kind of my God moment. So I'm looking up at the sky, and there's a pause while they're kind of preparing everything for the helicopter.
Oh, I just got chills.
And I'm looking up at the sky. I am completely nothing's in my control at that point. I'm just I just couldn't believe what was happening. And I finally take a moment to pray. And the only words that could come to me in that moment was, I'm yours. And what I meant by that was, I was just, God, if it's my time, I know where I'm going as a Christian, as a believer in Jesus Christ. I knew that I would be going to heaven.
Just peace.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And as weird as that sounds, death has always been something that's been a little scary to me. Even as a believer, it's just how's that all going to happen? How's it all going to, But at that moment, it was wow, I could be in heaven today. I'm that was just it was actually an amazing feeling. I'm I could see Jesus at any moment. And I was just I was completely at peace about it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then the other side of it, I was also God, if it's your will for me to live and be a mom and a wife and a sister and a daughter and a friend and all that, I want to live for you, and this is all in your control. It's all you. And luckily, God gave me a second chance. But from that moment on, I had complete peace. In the hospital, I was in the hospital for 8 days in Columbus at Riverside, and 7 of those days I was in the ICU. And there was some scary moments. By about when I hit my peak brain swelling,
because they said what, 4 to 5 days?
It was something 5 days total before I'd be out of the woods for this surgery, which they were, I was having CT scans done every day, and they were monitoring my brain swelling, and they said, I wasn't allowed to drink or eat, which was brutal. Ooh. I just wanted to drink and I wanted to eat. I was hungry, and they said, no, because we need to have you ready for surgery. If we need to rush in at any point. And the surgery would be shaving my head, drilling a hole into my skull, and putting a drain in so that my brain had room for swelling. And I mean, that was the lesser of the options. I know a lot of people end up having part of their skulls removed to allow their brain to.
But this drain would have been permanent, right?
I don't know.
I've heard that drain would have been permanent.
Okay. I don't know. They didn't really go into those details, I guess. But I just knew, like, even though that sounded scary, I was like, I just felt at peace. I really did. There was a scary moment, I feel like, in that day 3, whatever, when the doctors came in with not very good bedside manner and started talking about hydrocephalus, just this surgery, and just, I was not out of the woods, and I kind of went back into that, like, what happens here? I didn't feel like I was going to die at that point, but I felt like if something goes wrong with my surgery, like, what happens if something goes wrong with my brain and I'm, in the vegetable state or something like that. And I told my parents, I told Derek, I'm like, I don't want to live like that. I don't want to be burdened to you all. Like, I'm ready to go if something were like that to happen.
How crazy is that? This doctor, though, he was a resident. So he's still learning, but doctors definitely need bedside manner, because then you said that next doctor, the main doctor, came in and gave you
very positive. Yeah, he was very positive. He's like, that's very unlikely. You're making good progress.
Going off of your action.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was one of the biggest things that's part of this miracle. And that was something that was said to me, especially when I got home, is like, you're a miracle, you're a miracle. And I was like, okay. It didn't really hit me when I was in the hospital, but they kept saying to me in the hospital, your scans are not good. They look terrible. Like, they actually said that your scans are look awful, but they're not matching how you're behaving. I mean, eventually, I don't know what day it was. I got up, I was able to go to the bathroom. The nurse washed my hair. It was just, I was able to do things that, like, weren't making sense. I was able to talk. I kept asking Derek in the hospital, like, do I make sense? Because I was like, it just doesn't make it,
With a severe stroke.
Right.
And them saying your scans are terrible.
Right.
But they were treating your actions versus the scans.
Yeah. So,
and that's a good doctor, because there's so many protocols now where these hospitals, it's protocol. Right. So let's do this, but you got to treat the patient.
Right. So, I get home, and, it was, I didn't have a lot of the deficits that a lot of people had.
I want you to talk about, though, didn't you FaceTime your kids?
Yes. And that's where I don't know. I don't remember much about the first day once I got to Columbus. I remember seeing faces, and I think I saw my older 2 boys in the hospital. I'm not completely sure. My younger 2 were never allowed to come back there, so I FaceTimed them a lot, and that was hard. That was really hard. Just, I could see, especially Keegan, my 7-year-old, he was asking my mom, he's like, well, can't I just tell them I'm 12? He's like, he just wanted to come back so bad. And so that was really hard, but it was so wonderful to see them on FaceTime and talk to them and stuff. So,
because you're their rock, you were there for everything. Like, so it's hard when, dad's away working a lot more to then not see you at all. That would be really hard.
Right. And thankfully, I mean, my mother-in-law swooped in spite of her having some health issues at the time, and just took care of all my kids. That was amazing. And, they all dealt with it very differently. Each one of my kids kind of dealt with it different. And I didn't realize it until afterwards, how, my oldest is always kind of like a rock, kind of just, he just was kind of solid through it all. I'm sure he had some fears, but just kind of a rock, and probably taking that older kid position of just of that. And then my second son's very clingy to me. He's always been an emotional mama's boy. He was constantly texting and FaceTiming me because he just wanted to know I was okay. My third son,
and you could tell, Devin, your second was off, because we did family pictures of just, our sister-in-law is a photographer, and she wanted to get Stacey some pictures, and so she took some of the boys, and you could just, Devin is never like off. He's just easy to talk to, but he would just, during these pictures, he knew he had to be there, but he was he would wander off and be by himself. He didn't want anybody talking to him. It's just, you're like, oh. Where Avery was not, the oldest one. He was just his normal self that's there. And
I just think they deal with it very differently.
Absolutely.
Keegan, he had some like stressors that happened afterwards. Like he would do, and I think in kids, stress comes out in weird ways. Like he was like biting his fingers, and we dealt with that for months after it. Like it was just, that's how he was dealing with it. Like to the point he was bleeding.
Oh my gosh.
It's just like, he just was dealing with it in a very different way. And he, and Charlotte, still very young. She was only 4 at the time. I don't think she completely knew what was going on, but you still talk to her today. She'll be like, yeah, when you had your stroke, I mean, she just, it's interesting, but just so grateful.
Like your vacation, when you had that vacation month.
Well, and so that's the other part is like, Derek and I joke about how, my time in the hospital was like a second homecoming, or not homecoming, honeymoon. And I know that sounds insane, not in a typical honeymoon, but it's like we have such busy lives that we very rarely have time together, just him and I. And he never left my side the entire time I was in the hospital. I think he went to his aunt's house a couple times to shower and do laundry, and then was right by my side, and we laughed, we talked, we watched movies. It was like God gave us that week together. And we talked about it when we got home. We're like, when the kids would start acting up or fighting or life got stressful, we're like, let's go back to the ICU where it was calm and peaceful.
Do you think because you were in such a vulnerable stage of not knowing the outcome, you just were raw? Like,
yes,
this is it. Yes. Now we just tend to like cover things or make things okay, when at that situation you were just like, this is what I am.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's not what I had planned for my Friday, but you just roll with it. And I think relying on God to just, I mean, I can't describe it. And I know we've talked about this before, the peace that you have when you're going through loss of a loved one or you're, a trauma situation. It is truly like,
he steps in.
It is. I had never truly experienced that before. And it was amazing. It really was. And there's no other way to explain it other than God just gave me that in that moment when I could not, there was nothing I could do. He's like, I've got it. I'm going to take care of you. And it was amazing. And of course you get back to normal life and stress gets,
and if you know her, she is like, let me do it. I've got this. I don't need help. And she did ask for help for a while, which it was, to me, I was excited for. I know that sounds weird, but I'm like, if you need a ride to physical therapy, she's like, well, I think I have, no, okay, I'll do it. Like, let me just do it. Like, we all wanted to do it because it was a way to see her.
Yeah. I actually really enjoyed that time afterwards too. I spent a lot of time with my sisters-in-law. We were very close during that time. I couldn't drive for a while after that. So it was the outpouring of kindness from everyone. I mean, people that I haven't seen for years or talked to messaged me or brought food or sent flowers. It was unreal. So I also saw God working in that way through other people, just stepping in, and it made me realize like how much that means to people when they're going through something. And I didn't realize, how many people have been praying for me. It was all over the place. Yep. So that was amazing to see too.
Yeah, with us living in a small area, the word travels really, really quickly. And you did have a lot of people on your side praying for you. And also I just want
absolutely worked.
Yeah. Yes, they did. And I think the reason in the past you didn't want to like allow people to help you, it was because of your kind heart. Like you look at it as, well, I'm being an inconvenience to them. Right. But by allowing them to help, like you help them too. And
right. That's a great point. Yes. And I think I remember that in the time, like people want to do something. They don't know what else to do, but they want to do something. And you just got to let them.
And they're hurting too. I know you went through the trauma, but other people, they were hurting. And it was like, that was their way of helping to heal themselves.
Right.
By helping you.
Right.
We're all kind of strange, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But she did talk at, it's called Upward, which is a little basketball program. And I've heard so much about this. Even somebody I talked to last night was like, she talked at Upward and they were all in tears. So I do kind of want to know. What did you say there?
Similar. I'm trying to remember. I watched it recently because we had it recorded just because I was like, what did I say? But I think I told the same story, but I left it with a couple like takeaways, if you will. And one was talking about miracles. I never dreamed that I would be the recipient of a miracle, that I would, witness that. And so I just am a lot more open-minded to miracles are real. They do happen. We hear about them in the Bible all the time, but we maybe are blinded by them in real life. But when people started saying that when I got home, I was like,
that you were a miracle?
Yeah, I was like, I was like that, really? And but then I really did believe it. And I do believe in miracles. And I wanted to encourage people that you may find yourself in a hopeless situation. Like, everybody's going through stuff and difficult things. I mean, we can look all around us and see people that are hurting, have lost loved ones, are struggling with grief or disease or relationship problems, and they don't see how their circumstances are ever going to change or get better. And you just have to believe that God could be working a miracle that you may not see right away or understand how it's all going to work out, but you just got to believe that He is working in your life. Just stay connected to Him. And the other piece I was, similar, just, lean into Him. When you are struggling, just don't underestimate leaning into Christ, praying to Him, reading His Word, because it will give you a peace. And that doesn't mean life is going to be easy and that you're not going to still face difficult circumstances, but there is no other peace you can find other than His peace. You can search, you can try to do all kinds of things, but that is the only true peace. And so He gave it to me in a moment when I needed it the most. And so it's real, and it's there for a gift to us if we just turn to Him and take it.
Oh, I think so too. I think with circumstances, you're going through something, and it may be for you, but it also may be for somebody else watching you.
Yeah.
People watch other people all the time. And to watch Stacey as her strength, I mean, she has faith like you wouldn't believe. And she just has strength in life. And for people to see that afterwards, and even before, but afterwards, like, she has so much faith in God and knows He is in ultimate control. And we all have to just let Him. Like, we can't.
And it's a daily struggle. I mean, it is a daily, it's like giving control when we so want it. Like I especially, I want to be in control. I want to be in control of my household. I want to be in control of how my day goes. And
she tries to control me, but
and so it is hard. It's very hard. The other thing I was going to say is, I realize how grateful I am to be alive and doing well. I joined a lot of these support groups after the stroke to just kind of speak to and learn from other people who have dealt with stroke, and particularly my kind of stroke, which I'll talk about here in a second. But so I joined all these groups on Facebook and, just tried to learn as much as I could about stroke and how to deal with the symptoms. I had a lot of fatigue afterwards. I would sleep all day, which is a normal part of the brain healing. But just trying to deal with it. And I realized how fortunate I am to be doing so well, because most of the people that are stroke survivors are not doing well. They have a long road to recovery.
The same stroke you've had?
A lot of them. I mean, I have found very few people that had the kind of outcome I did. So many people just, struggle daily. They would say they don't want to live. They, I hate my life because every day is a struggle to get dressed, to eat. I can't hold a job because I can't do it. Or I have chronic fatigue, or my spouse has left me because, I feel like they feel like they're useless now. And my heart breaks for those people. And it's opened my eyes to, all of that. I went through a period of guilt too, where I felt like, why am I okay? And so many people are not, and it made me feel guilty. But I also know God has a reason for why that happened and why I am okay. And he's blessed me, unbelievably. But, and I don't know, I've struggled over the last year as to why did this happen? Because I had a stroke as a result of a spontaneous artery dissection. And so you have two arteries going up your neck to your brain.
On the backside,
yeah,
right?
the backside. There's ones that come from the heart too, but on the backside, two arteries that go up. And one of my arteries, if you think of it like your blood flowing through your artery, the inside of the artery tore. So I had like this flap, the lining, yes. And so I had this flap, and that caused a blood clot where blood was not flowing properly. And the blood clot caused the stroke in my cerebellum. So the left side of my cerebellum. So that's why I had all my symptoms on my left side. But your right side is actually what's affected. So if your left side of your brain has a stroke, your right side is affected. So I had a little bit of arm and shoulder issues when it first started, but I have very little pain.
But you had facial pain
here. Facial pain, back of my brain.
But then this side was the one that was affected. I remember you having shoulder pain.
Oh, yeah. I had a lot of right side shoulder pain. I still have some wrist issues, but it's, I've had it x-rayed and looked at, and everything's, it's just, it'll be fine. It's fine. But so another part of the miracle is that the part of the brain that had my stroke was the cerebellum. God created our brains to have a pretty big cerebellum, and you don't need all of your cerebellum for function. And so the cerebellum controls balance, maybe vision. I'm not completely sure.
I think was one.
Yeah, which makes sense why I had all of the symptoms I did. I dealt with balance a lot in physical therapy when I first got home, and some vision issues. I still have a little bit of eye issues. I can see good, but I have some pain behind my eyes.
Just on both eyes or just one?
Both eyes. But God created the cerebellum to be bigger than you need. So I have a huge black spot of dead part of my brain of the cerebellum, but luckily I still have the entire right side that is fine. And so that's why I don't have a lot of the deficits I do. And then so many other people have these bad strokes, but it affects different parts of their brain, and they don't have the extra, if something goes wrong in that part of the brain, then they lose function of, whether it's their movement of the arms or their, all kinds of things.
I think cognition was one.
Yeah.
Movement, balance.
Yes.
Language, attention. It's considered the little brain.
Yes. So again, I mean, Google. It could have been so much worse had it been another part of my brain, but it happened to be the cerebellum. So, another blessing in all of it.
So, wow.
I think we'll always know what the outcome of the situation. And that's hard.
Yeah.
Like you want to know, is this helping somebody?
Right.
Did somebody get saved through this? And salvation alone is just accepting that Christ is God and having faith in him. God came to this earth as Christ, fully human, fully God. And we just have to accept that. And I think that's one of the biggest things people don't understand with salvation. You don't work your way. And you had accepted Christ long ago. Thank heavens you did, because that peace he gave
you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's such a struggle, or I've struggled with, what am I supposed to do with all this? This happened. I just don't want it to go to waste on. So, what is that? I've thought about, should I be helping other stroke survivors? Should I be, what should I be doing? I don't know. And it hasn't been revealed to me. It's been kind of a rough year mentally, just because I've tried to make sense of what happened, and I can't make sense of it. It was a spontaneous dissection, because we don't know the cause of it. A lot of people have it from trauma to their head, or neck manipulation, or lifting something very heavy, but I couldn't pinpoint anything that caused that. So I struggled with making sense of it, and I still do, but I've accepted it. For the longest time, that I'm not going to be able to live my life. I'm going to be in fear of this happening again. And I thought, am I ever going to, every little thing, I don't want to turn my neck too fast, I might dissect my artery and have a stroke. But I've really moved past that. Like, there's nothing that I feel like I wouldn't do. I mean, I dove in a pool this summer. I went on a water slide. There's nothing. I'm back to exercising, without fear of doing something to my neck. So
when you went back for your follow-up and you seen that main neurologist, what did he say?
So my artery did not heal. It has not healed, as far as I know.
It's the smaller one.
It's the smaller one. So I have a dominant one on my right side and the less dominant one on my left side. And so had it been my right side, it maybe would have been a different outcome too. It was my left side. It is not healed as of that point. But he said he didn't need to see me back again. He said, your brain has made new, I don't know the exact word, he said pathways or connections. The brain is amazing.
It's amazing.
It's been really amazing to read and learn about that. So he said, unless you have any big issues, I don't need to see you back. I was like, okay, which at first kind of scared me. I'm like, I want to keep getting these scans until I see it healed. But he said, your brain's made new pathways. And I was like, okay. So I haven't been back. I haven't been back to the neurologist since. So
I think, like we were talking about before, you don't always know, with other people watching you, just like that person I had talked to last night. I had no idea she even knew anything about Stacey, but I'm not from here, so I don't know a lot of people, but she just immediately got teary-eyed. I'm like, she's watching. Something, people know. People watch you. They know your demeanor. They know who you are. And by them getting teary-eyed, just mentioning your name, it's like, okay, you have an impact. You may not see it.
Yeah.
And that's the struggle, but.
Right. And I mean, I do feel like it impacted people a lot my age because, whether through their faith or just, realizing, hey, we're not spring chickens anymore. I had so many people reach out to me and be like, well, I've started exercising because I was inspired by the fact that, you had a stroke and were 40 and, so I do think
it did not to lift too many heavy weights.
Yeah, they were, because they were asking me, like, do you do CrossFit? I'm like, no, I don't do CrossFit. I mean, different things that could have caused it. So, I mean, I am a lot more cognizant about that. Like, at first, when I went to the hairdresser, I wouldn't put my neck back in the sink and different things like that. But now I'm just like, you know what? I can't live my life like this. Like, I'm just going to live my life normal. I never would in a million years dreamed that this would happen. So, if it happens again, it happens. I don't want it to happen.
In the Bible, it says, do not fear 365 times. I don't think that's a coincidence.
Yeah.
It says it 365 times.
365.
How many days are in a year, right? Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah.
We are
one
not
for each day. So it's easy to get in that trap of fear, but you just have to think, okay, this is the enemy trying to get to me. God does not want us to fear.
Right.
And so.
Right. And I don't know. Again, that was something that happened along the way where God just took that fear away from me. I mean, I felt like I'm not going to be able to live my life. Like every pain, every headache, I'm like, oh, here we go. This is going to be a stroke. I was just kind of paranoid for a long time. But at some point he's like, you've got to live your life. You're a mom still. You can't just coil up and, be living in fear. So,
and unfortunately, a lot of people did coil up with that pandemic that hit and lived in fear.
Yeah,
fear. They can't see their own kids, and you realize no, can't do that.
Yeah.
I commend you, and I just think it's amazing that you're telling your story and letting people like hear what you went through and just being vulnerable. So thank you.
Are you good with people asking you questions? Are you open book?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I at first I feel like I was talking about it a lot to people. And then I started to be like, I don't think anybody wants to hear this anymore. So I just kind of quit talking about it. But it's actually very therapeutic, I feel like, to talk about it, because the person that goes through trauma, everybody else kind of goes on with their life. Like, I'm sure if you've lost a loved one, that's someone's very close to you, everyone's there for you right in the beginning. And you have friends and family to always rely on. But it's like the person that goes through it lives with it daily. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about it. But I'm, it doesn't consume me, but I also feel like when you've gone through something like that, it is always in the back of your mind. And so it's actually therapeutic to talk about it, I feel like.
Yeah. Oh, I think so too. So if you guys have any questions, she's open and available.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Well, do you have any kind of like special scripture that stuck out to you at that time, or anything like a favorite book of the Bible or anything like that to end?
Well, I'll tell you a verse that has always stuck with me, and I've taught my kids since they were young, is Joshua 1:9. It's like, do not fear, the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And so, I mean, that's a verse that always has stuck with me, and I think was helpful during that time. Don't need to be fearful, because he's always there. He's always there.
Absolutely.
And I don't have to rely on my own strength. He's got it under control.
That's a good one.
That is good. Love it.
It's true. Very true.
All right. That's a good way to end. So thank you so much for your time. And we love you. So we're so glad. Like, no one would ever know you've gone through this today.
Oh, no.
Like, we're just so thankful for God's miracle.
Sometimes I wonder myself, did that actually happen? But it definitely did.
That's awesome.
It is weird. It's weird. We're coming up on 1 year.
I know. It's weird.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we'll have to celebrate you.
Yeah, either celebrate, or I may just sit and watch sad movies all day. I don't know.
And take a nap.
Take a nap. Take a nap.
Remembrance.
Exactly.
All right. I'm going to stop this. Bye. And we'll thank you so much. Bye.
All right. Thanks. See ya.
Okay.